On Tech News Today, the major tech companies are now doing a great job protecting user privacy, according to a new report. And it's all thanks to Edward Snowden. Plus, Amazon announces new original programming for kids, Microsoft gets into home automation, and Google Now will remind you to pay your bills. All that and more coming up right now.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Friday, May 16th, 2014. This episode is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create your own professional website or online portfolio. For a free 2-week trial and 10% off, go to squarespace.com and use the offer code TNT. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Mike Elgin.
And I'm Jason L.
Tech News Today explores the big stories of the day with some of the world's best journalists. Our guest co-anchor today is Harry McCracken, editor-at-large for Time and the author of the Technologizer blog. Welcome, Harry.
Hey, Mike. It's great to be here.
I'm glad you're here. And before we get into the news, I just wanted to ask you about yesterday's net neutrality vote by the FCC. What do you think about this whole issue? I don't think we've had a conversation about this, and I'm curious about your take on the whole phenomenon.
Well, in general, I think a lot of people spout out about net neutrality without fully understanding the issues. I cheerfully admit I don't fully understand them. I am confused as to how they can maintain both, that there's not a slow internet and a fast internet, while also saying that ISPs will be able to charge companies to enter a fast lane. That those two ideas seem mutually incompatible to me.
It is confusing, and it's one of the problems that if Harry McCracken doesn't fully feel comfortable understanding the issue in its totality, what chance does the average consumer or mobile broadband customer have at understanding it? I think it's part of the problem with this whole thing. It's very complex. People confuse, for example, the last mile net neutrality issue, which is where net neutrality really, where the rubber meets the road, and also the connection between the, where the content originates and the ISP before it goes to the last mile. That's an entirely different issue. And those relationships are subject to peering relationships and all kinds of things. As I understand it, Tom Wheeler is saying that he's not going to allow this sort of paid preference for bandwidth coming into the last mile unless, and there's a sort of little clause in there, unless they can demonstrate that it causes no harm. And he's also not allowing ISPs to slow down or block traffic from any origination point as the result of these deals that are presumably going to be allowed if his plan is actually voted into reality as the new rule. Again, this isn't law. These are FCC rules about what the FCC can and can't regulate. And so it's a very complex issue. And I think personally that the thing that's missing is and we talked about this yesterday, is the fact that we expect the cost, not Moore's law, but the cost of internet access to remain constant while the performance goes up. And so his proposal initially is fine, but what it does is it incentivizes companies to slow down the rate, as I understand it, of the improvements unless companies are paying, in which case you end up with exactly what net neutrality advocates don't want, which is you have a fast lane and a slow lane. You have to pay for the fast lane, and the small companies, startups, nonprofits, companies without a lot of money are disadvantaged in comparison to the big, wealthy existing companies. And so it's, as you say, it's very complex. Devil's in the details, but we have 4 months to think about it, to read about it, to learn about it, and also to comment on it and to have our voices heard. So I recommend that everyone listening to this broadcast get involved. Let's all understand the issues together, and maybe we can make sure that we have a good outcome here, because this is going to, whatever they decide is going to be the internet as we all get it going forward. And so it's a very important issue.
And of course, everybody gets to define net neutrality on their own terms. So everybody can come up with a definition that fits what they want, essentially. So Tom Wheeler gets to say that net neutrality exists, Verizon gets to, and people who don't like what they're doing can say that it's over because they get to define the terms.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's certainly complex, and again, we're going to be looking at this. Conveniently, the 4-month comment period places the actual implementation of this conveniently after the midterm elections in Washington, D.C. So that's how politics works. You put the unpleasant things after elections so that by the time there's another election, everyone has forgotten about it. Well, let's get into the news, shall we? The Electronic Frontier Foundation says most major technology companies are actually doing a great job protecting user privacy in the wake of Edward Snowden's NSA revelations. That's most, but not all. There's still a few laggards out there who are leaving users exposed. Now, Harry, you reported on this story. What were the EFF's criteria for rating companies on protecting user privacy?
Well, they had 6 factors, and they were things like whether they'll turn over your information without a warrant, whether they'll tell you that they turned over your information, whether they publish guidelines, whether they fight for privacy before Congress, and that kind of stuff.
And 8 companies, including Apple, Dropbox, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, and Twitter, got a 6-star rating, which I believe is very high, or the maximum, isn't it? And then
yes.
the laggards are AT&T and Amazon, which got 2 stars each, and Snapchat got 1 star. Snapchat is apparently not doing a good job protecting user privacy, according to the EFF. So what is it that, and I know that some of these companies that are on the 6-star rating list used to be on much lower. What have they done differently? What has Apple and Dropbox and some of these companies done differently this year that they didn't do last year?
Well, over the last year or so, something out of the ordinary happened, which was a guy named Edward Snowden started making disclosures about what the government was doing with data. And a bunch of the big companies said that they were upset over this and would take new measures. And it's nice to see the EFF is saying that they did. They've been doing this survey for several years, and up until now, the results have always been pretty dismal. You've seen lots of companies that got maybe 1 star apiece. And Google was really the only large one that kind of did okay, and even it did not get a perfect score until now. So the fact that a bunch of big companies met every measure is totally new. And, you can't say definitively it was because of Snowden, but that's the one thing that changed this year.
Absolutely. And I think the EFF did credit Snowden for raising awareness and sort of driving the urgency of privacy protections. I'm actually reading Glenn Greenwald's book, No Place to Hide, which came out a couple of days ago. And this is about, of course, he's the person to whom Edward Snowden leaked these documents. He's the primary person, the journalist, where, Edward Snowden handed him a thumb drive that contained huge, thousands of documents on the NSA, which is really the core source of all this information that's been dribbling out since the revelations began. And of course, this is his first book on the topic, and I'm telling you, it's a gripping book, and it's going to be made into a movie and so on. I don't know if you've looked at the book yet, but it's really a fascinating reading, and there's a lot of details in there that we didn't know before. And so it's clear when you read this just why these revelations are driving this kind of privacy policy changes for some of these bigger companies. Have you seen the book, Harry?
I have not yet, but I want to read it. I mean, it's the kind of story that any journalist wants to know all the details about. Yeah,
absolutely. There's a lot of journalism in there, and Greenwald has some, pretty disparaging views about the way that mainstream journalism sometimes works. And he discovered that the publication that he happened to be writing for, which is The Guardian, initially had the same concerns. They kept trying to get the first stories published. And The Guardian had lawyers, and they were freaked out, and the NSA was involved, and they were trying to block it. And it was this multi-day situation where they just couldn't get the first stories published. And of course, once they did publish the first story, and then the second one was about PRISM, and then the third one was about Snowden himself, where he came out as the leaker. And then the video, the famous video of Snowden in the Hong Kong hotel room came out. All that story is recounted, and it reads like some kind of thriller or something. It's really well written, and it's really kind of exciting information to place on that. But it's nice to see that these big companies are getting their act together and starting to protect user privacy. The EFF is not an organization to be trifled with. If they say that they.
No.
privacy is being protected. It is, because this is an organization that's very has high standards for this sort of thing. So this is very good news, rare good news in the world of privacy online.
Definitely.
Well, in a sec, we're going to tell you about Amazon's new initiative for original content. But first, I want to tell you about Squarespace. Squarespace is an awesome place, the awesome place to build a website of any kind online. Squarespace has 25 beautiful templates. So if you want to build a blog or a website to promote your book, or a website to sell things or to promote your business, whatever it is you need a website for, these templates will help you get there very quickly in high style, because they are absolutely beautiful. You don't have to accept the template as it is. Of course, you can add your own pictures and images, and you can customize it, create new pages. There's a million options here that you can use to make a website that's completely unique. And you can also even create your own logo using the Squarespace Logo Creator tool. Really a phenomenal tool for you to use. It's easy to use too, and if you need help, they have live chat support and email support 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And e-commerce is supported on all subscription plan levels. So if you need to receive money for any reason, selling something, raising money for your nonprofit, whatever, you can do that at all subscription plan levels. And of course, Squarespace is mobile ready. Your website will look fantastic on any sort of device, a phone, tablet, whatever. And you can also monitor and manage your site using a mobile device. So it's really powerful for mobile computing, which is very important these days. Now start a free 2-week trial with no credit card required and start building your website. When you decide to sign up with Squarespace, make sure you use the offer code TNT, because that'll get you 10% off the price and also show your support for Tech News Today. And we thank Squarespace for their support of this show. And remember that a better web awaits. And it starts with your new Squarespace website. Amazon announced plans to launch its first 3 original TV shows for children this summer. The company's looking for its preschool house of cards that might propel Amazon Prime Video and Amazon Fire TV to the big leagues. With us to explain this strategy is Todd Spangler, who's the New York digital editor for Variety. Welcome, Todd.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Now, Todd, why would an online bookstore plow so many resources into original programming for tiny people who don't even have credit cards?
Well, first of all, Amazon would be the first to tell you that they are not just a bookstore, they're Earth's biggest selection. So they've come a long way from their early days as an online bookseller. So they are making a run at becoming a significant subscription VOD player, and trying to build a service that really challenges Netflix ultimately.
And so they are. And of course, they're really making a big play for children on multiple levels. They have multiple products for kids. They have a kind of all-you-can-eat consumption for their tablet, and that'll be rolled out for the Amazon Fire TV. This is kind of like the Ronald McDonald approach to marketing. You get people... it's a long view, right? You get people really into your service when they're still children, and then as they grow up, they'll continue, hopefully, to get all their content and movies and music and TV and so on from that same source. Do you see that as a strategy? I mean, it seems curious to me that, clearly they're not an online bookstore. They're so much more than that. But to create original programming like this, which is very expensive and a whole, completely different line of business than their traditional business, that's a huge investment. It's not just these 3 too. They have 2 more shows coming later on. This is a big deal, isn't it? I mean, they're essentially a Hollywood studio, aren't they?
They're a small studio, and I think in the context of Amazon's larger business, this is not a huge bet. This is probably in the tens of millions of dollars all told. They are spending a lot more on licensing content from HBO and Nickelodeon, by the way, which also plays into the kids' TV programming sector. But you make a good point that, they're trying to build a long-range strategy here that keeps people coming back to the service. And, in the near term, you get children into the service by giving away for their parents to present these interesting new shows in an ad-free environment, which is obviously attractive to parents. So that's a big reason why children's programming is an important genre for the likes of Netflix and Amazon, and Hulu for that matter. So they want kids to like these shows, watch them, and watch them again and again, right? Which is another facet of these subscription VOD services, that you can watch them as many times as you want. They're on demand. You don't have to wait for them to come on at any given time. They're available on all these devices and the Kindle tablets. So I think it's a pretty smart decision. But again, it's early days. These are their first 3 shows. They're doing 6 episodes of each of the shows. There are 2 that are aimed at preschool kids, and I've watched those. Those look pretty good. One of them is from the co-creator of Blue's Clues. It's called Creative Galaxy. It's very well done. And there's a live action show called Androids that is also very good. Again, Hollywood production values. They're spending money. They're spending real money on these shows because they want to make them great, and they're not going halfway. But again, is this a big gamble for Amazon? I wouldn't say so. And they believe that this is, at this point, starting to bring people into the Prime service as a primary reason people sign up. Prime started as a free 2-day shipping service, and you pay an annual subscription and get free shipping on millions of products that they sell. And then they tacked this Netflix-like service onto it, and people wondered how that was going to work. Well, Amazon now says that it's having the desired effect that they wanted. That it's not just free shipping, it's not just unlimited video. It's both, and how they get you into the service doesn't matter. But they're giving people every day new reasons to keep paying for that service, and keep watching the shows that they're putting into the pipeline.
Now, Harry McCracken, the Amazon strategy with digital Fire TV keeps getting more interesting. I mean, we learned this week that Amazon is going to be supporting Rockstar Games' Grand Theft Auto, which, that's, typically associated with, Xbox and so on. And now they have all these original children's programmings. Where are they going with this thing? It sounds like they're awfully serious about kind of owning the living room. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they're Amazon, so they want to be the king of all media, essentially. It started with printed books, but now it's ebooks, it's apps, it's movies and TV shows, and games are still a relatively new thing for them, but they're interested in that now. And now that they have their own living room platform with the Kindle Fire, all of the stuff gets way more important for them.
Now, Todd Spangler, we have a question in the question engine from Rodeo 90. And the question is there any sort of content ratings for these, G, PG, PG-13, that sort of thing, for company-produced shows? Are shows produced by the Amazons of the world subject to those kinds of parental ratings?
No, they don't have any of those kinds of TV regulations. They can do whatever they want. But Amazon is interested in directing people to the right content that they would be most interested in. And so they're going to do a very good job of trying to make sure that this is extremely tailored to the audiences that they're trying to reach. Otherwise, they're not going to get people to watch it and come back and watch more of it. And they've developed the programming. They're working with a educational psychologist who also worked on Blue's Clues and some other kids shows, and trying to make the shows not only fun and interesting but also educational. So they're saying all the right things and they're doing all the right things. And again, the shows are fun and interesting, and so I think it's a good first step for them.
Fascinating. Well, Todd Spangler, thank you for coming on Tech News Today.
Thank you.
You can find Todd Spangler at Variety.com and also on Twitter at xspangler. That's XPANGLER on Twitter. All right. Thanks again. Todd. Well, Microsoft is finally getting serious about the home automation racket. The company announced a partnership with Insteon yesterday that'll integrate Insteon control into Microsoft products via Windows and Windows Phone apps. Plus, Microsoft plans to sell Insteon gadgets on its online store. Ry Christ writes for CNET, and he joins us to explain this story. Ry, how will this integration work? And first of all, welcome. And how will this integration work exactly?
Well, thanks for having me on. The integration looks like it's going to be directly tied into Microsoft's live tiles. So if you have switches or light bulbs connected through Insteon, starting in June 1st, if you use a Windows device, a PC or a tablet that uses Windows 8.1 or a Windows Phone 8, you'll be able to actually have live tiles on your home screen or your start screen that are dedicated to your devices. You can access right from there. And that seems like a really good marriage of Insteon's functionality with the Microsoft ecosystem.
Now, Harry McCracken, I've always wondered about Microsoft kind of dragging their heels on getting into home automation for the Xbox platform. It seems to me that Xbox is ideal as a platform for home automation, a kind of server or hub, if you will. But here they are getting into bed with Insteon and supporting their hub, their light bulbs, their camera support, those sorts of things. Shouldn't Microsoft be rolling their own and building it into Xbox?
Well, in the old days, they would have. If home automation had been as exciting, 15 years ago as it's getting now, Microsoft would have invented some sort of proprietary thing that worked on Windows and tried to roll it out. And I think it is sort of a sign that they are a new Microsoft, that instead of trying to compete with something that's been around forever and is well-defined, they're working with it. And I find it basically to be encouraging. And there certainly is no reason why they couldn't work with Insteon on functionality for the Xbox One as well.
Now, right, Chris, Insteon can control third-party devices. For example, I believe they can control the Nest thermostat, home automation devices like that. Will this third-party support be extended through the Windows apps and Windows Phone apps? In other words, will we be able to control your Nest thermostat using your Windows Phone device?
It's unclear right now how robust the support for those third-party devices will be at this point, but I would suspect yes. I would suspect that you'll be able to control on a limited level those devices. With the Insteon backend integration of the Nest, you don't have as much control as you would if you use Nest's own proprietary app, but you do get basic control over this, the temperature and setting the level you want it to come on at. I think that will probably extend it to Microsoft as well through the live tiles and through the updated Insteon app. That's already within Insteon's app right now, and so that should carry over to the updated Windows version of Insteon's app too.
Interesting. Now, do you anticipate that Microsoft will be having additional announcements around partnerships in home automation? I mean, there's so many companies that do the kinds of things that Insteon does. You name it. There's just dozens or even hundreds of these companies. Do you think Microsoft will embrace this strategy broadly, or are they going to really focus on Insteon?
I think Insteon is a first step for them, and there's certainly a lot out there, like you say, that could be snatched up and could be partnered with. We've seen a whole lot of that happening lately. We've seen Belkin, the makers of the Wemo Switch and Wemo products, team up with the small appliance manufacturers at Jarden. They produced a Wemo crock pot. They're going to have a Wemo coffee maker coming out. So a lot of kind of strange bedfellows between appliances and the smart home. I think that there is room there for Microsoft to grow. It just depends on how much they find success with Insteon. If Insteon takes off, if it proves to be very popular with their existing users and attracting new users, which I think it might, certainly from the Insteon community, I think that they might be tempted to take a deeper step into home automation, and that might mean expanding outward. But Insteon has a pretty wide swath of products. They have over 200 devices directly compatible, so there's a lot for Microsoft to play with right now, and we'll see how that works out in the coming months.
All right, Chris. Well, thank you for joining us on Tech News Today.
All right, thanks for having me.
Find Rychrist at cnet.com and also on Twitter at Rychrist. Well, Google just keeps dribbling out useful new capabilities for Google Now. Today, Google added bill reminders. That's right. Google will scan your Gmail inbox looking for bills. When it finds them, it'll sort through those emails about when you're supposed to pay. Then, without any effort on your part, reminders will pop up in Google Now, nagging you to pay your frickin' bills. Harry McCracken, this just it's such a cool story. I mean, Google Now just keeps getting these little capabilities, and they're dribbled out every week or two, and it's leading up to this product that is just going to be so compelling, especially when it's built into what we can easily assume will be the wearable devices that Google will support, like the watches that are going to be coming out in a few months. Do you love this as much as I do? I mean, I really like Google Now.
Yeah, I mean, between Siri and Microsoft's Cortana and Google Now, Google Now is the most fully evolved of these things, and it's improving very rapidly. I think because Google is always paranoid about what the next thing is beyond web search, and they see the next thing beyond web search as being, you don't have to search because you're using a service that knows you so well that it will tell you about stuff before you think you need to know about it. And reminding you about your bills is an example of that.
What's interesting about this is it requires you to get into, if you want to take full advantage of this, it requires you to get an email for all of your bills, which then puts more information into Google's hands about your financial background.
Yep.
Who knows what they do with that, but it's an interesting way to kind of get that Trojan horse in there to say, hey, give us a little bit more of your information. If you get these emails with all of your account information coming through regularly, we know so much more about you.
Absolutely.
And of course,
go ahead, Harry.
Sorry, go ahead. There's been endless discussion for the entire life of Gmail about whether people are comfortable having Google scanning your email. And services like this will only work if lots of people are comfortable with that idea. If people didn't want this to happen, there'd be no point in doing these services.
Yeah, absolutely. In the future, the search engines will search you. So that's basically how it works. Well, speaking of Google, we've got a big number for you. The number is 1 billion. That's the number of times Google's Gmail for Android app has been installed, according to Google's Android chief Sundar Pichai. The number doesn't include updates, so that makes it even more impressive, but it does include the Gmail that's automatically installed for the authorized version of Android. Gmail is the single most frequently installed Android app ever, so that is pretty cool. That's a huge, huge number. It also is a testament to the dominance of Android worldwide. Well, we got some email from a TNT fan named Philip Guyton, who writes, quote, I was listening to Thursday's show and the thought occurred to me, there's never been any net neutrality rules for wireless data, yet the coverage has gotten better and faster without a rise in price. You just pay for what you use. What are your thoughts? Well, in fact, wireless net neutrality is something that was discussed yesterday in the big FCC meeting we've been reporting on. And in fact, that's also open to public comment. So wireless is very much getting into the net neutrality argument and conversation, and there are probably going to be some rules for or against net neutrality with wireless devices coming out of this whole FCC situation. Another Tech News Today fan named Darko Resnick referred to our coverage of Evernote's recent deal with LinkedIn to process business cards and turn them into search contacts on both services. Darko points out that Google Goggles does that too, and for free. He writes that Google Goggles can recognize business cards and dump them into your contacts. Evernote's give you 5 free contact imports, but the Google ones is unlimited and free. And the cool thing about Goggles is you don't even need to open up the app to scan cards. Just take a photo of the business card, and a few seconds later, you get a notification that Goggles detected a possible business card. It's very convenient. It's true. But if you're a LinkedIn user or if you're an Evernote user, it is very convenient to use the LinkedIn and Evernote process because it just goes right into those databases that you're already using. So that is a big plus. Well, in a follow-up, we went down a rat hole on yesterday's Tech News Today talking about the merger of fashion and wearable computing. My own view is that the two worlds are merging and that success and failure of wearable devices will be determined in large part by how good they look, by how fashionable they are, by how elegant and beautiful they are. And that's a new reality that we geeks are going to have to confront. But this morning we learned that Google has hired a woman named Ivy Ross to head the Google Glass division. She's not an engineer or technician. Instead, she's worked at marketing positions for fashion brands, including Gap, Coach, and Old Navy. She also worked some years ago at Bausch & Lomb, where she was in charge of the design of eyeglasses. Harry, this is a reality that we just can't escape. The wearable devices. If you look at the chatter around the smartwatches that are coming up, most of it is around whether something is attractive enough, appealing enough as a fashion accessory to wear. And if you look at Google Glass, people love it or hate it based on whether Google Glass's dorky cyborg looking thing is part of what people want to project as their personal identity, or whether it isn't. Is this a depressing fact that that all of this wearable computing stuff is essentially jewelry and fashion?
Well, the technology also has to be really good, but that is a big factor. And Google's hire reminds me a little bit of Apple hiring the CEO of Burberry to run the Apple stores, which I think is another reflection of the fact that the more personal technology gets and the more you have it with you at all times, and maybe have attached it to your person, the more the way it looks matters, and the more technology and fashion are starting to intersect, and people from both of those worlds are entering the other ones.
And I'm sure the fashion people are just as depressed about this as we geeks are. So, well, you know, it's a circle of life, and you know, I'm looking forward to somebody eventually coming out with a smartwatch that I really want to wear. So far, all the options are either too minimal. They're the bracelet types that are for fitness and so on, or they're big clunk, you know, big screen lashed to your wrist, which are kind of unappealing to me. I really want a really nice looking smartwatch that has great functionality. Maybe it'll come from Motorola, maybe it'll come from Apple, who knows, but I definitely want one of those, and I'm waiting for something that's actually wearable. Well, in other news, two companies called Team Phoenicia and RevUp Render have initiated a publicity stunt for the record books. They've launched a race on the moon by tiny smartphone-sized moon rovers to be built by contestants. The rovers are called Doge sleds because the whole point is to promote Dogecoin, and the race is called RevUp Render Iditarod Challenge. That's right, Iditarod. All contestant fees must be paid in Dogecoins. Registrations for the event begin May 21st and continue through July 31st. A race in San Francisco later this year will determine the 3 contestants, and then the rovers will be carried to the moon on Google's Moonlander at the end of this year if all goes according to plan, which is unlikely. Harry McCracken, there's another product, Picari Sweat, which is a Japanese beverage of some kind, that's also going to be putting products on the moon for promotional purposes. Is the moon the new, you know, the last place within reach where there isn't enough advertising and therefore needs to be embraced as a marketing location?
Well, presumably the moment somebody figures out how to project advertising messages on the moon so we can all see them, that will be done. So marketers don't understand the idea of not going places. If they can, they will. Well,
whatever funds some kind of space program, it'd be interesting to see if this happens. I'm guessing it's not. I'm guessing this is not going to happen. It just seems like there are too many wacky moving parts here. And I'm predicting that by the end of next year, there will be no Iditarod on the moon. That's
anything involving Dogecoin, you have to take with a grain of salt.
That's right. Will Dogecoin itself be here next year? Don't tell Padre I said that. But I you know, it's in trouble just as Bitcoin is. Well, in other news, 3D printing is great, but sometimes 2D printing is better. A new machine created by designer Miguel Valenzuela prints pancakes right onto the grill. It's called the Pancake Bot. It's powered by an Arduino Mega, and the machine prints intricate designs for breakfast. The 1.0 version was built using Lego. You may have heard about it a year or two ago, but this one's made out of acrylic and metal. Valenzuela will be publicly debuting his Pancake Bot at the Bay Area Maker Faire in Silicon Valley tomorrow. Are we looking to the future here, Harry? Are we going to have 3D printers making breakfast for us 10 years from now? Will this be kind of like the, what is that thing on Star Trek, the thing that just produces food out of nothing?
I'm not sure, but I think that 3D printing in general will be part of life. And we will be producing and fabricating stuff at home. And I don't see why food wouldn't be part of that.
Yeah, it's called the Star Trek Replicator. And yeah, this is there's actually another 3D printer that makes food, and they're making hamburgers and crazy stuff like that. And the food that one makes is absolutely nauseating looking. It looks terrible. Unless they, you know, sometimes they make little crystalline sugar designs to go on top of pastries and things like that. That looks pretty good. But this Pancake Bot looks pretty wacky. So that's and it looks like it'll actually produce something you might want to eat. So interesting development in the world of 2D printing. I guess 2D, right? I mean, is that 3D? Yeah, I don't know. I think it's
2.5D.
2.5D. There you go. Well, Harry McCracken, that's our tech news today. Thank you so much for coming on as our guest co-anchor.
Thanks, Mike. It's always fun.
All right. You can find Harry McCracken's Technologizer blog at the time.com website. Well, there are lots of ways to subscribe to Tech News Today. You can subscribe to Tech News Today at twit.tv/TNT or on YouTube at youtube.com/technewstoday. Follow us on Twitter at Tech News Today TV. And please join our Google Plus community by searching for Tech News Today on Google Plus. You can subscribe to our subreddit as well at technewstoday.reddit.com. And we want to hear from you. Comment on Twitter or Google Plus using the hashtag Tech News Today, and we'll find it. Or you can send email at tnt@twit.tv or leave us voicemail by calling 260-TNT-SHOW. And don't miss our evening newscast, Tech News Tonight at 4 p.m. Pacific. You doing that one, Jason, tonight?
I am.
All
I'll
right.
be there.
Don't miss Jason tonight, and every weeknight is either Sarah or Jason. My name is Mike Elgin. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you Monday.